So I know this sounds crazy, but the GoPro Fusion is almost as good as the Insta360 Pro, an 8K 360 camera. And my comparison tool proves it. GoPros are amazing because they bring us so close to the action that you can almost feel it. This video is about the ultimate GoPro, the GoPro Fusion. It's a 360 camera, but if there's one thing you should remember from this video, it's that the Fusion is not just for 360 photos or videos. Hi, my name is Nick. I have 41 360 cameras so far, and I've written over 1,800 articles about 360 cameras on 360reviews.com. I've been using the Fusion since November of 2017, and here's my long-term review after the big update in January of 2018 which solved many issues. In part 1 of this video, I'll show you 10 examples of how Fusion transforms your GoPro video. In part 2, we'll talk about how to use the Fusion, plus 7 shooting techniques. In part 3, I'll talk about its advantages and disadvantages compared to other 360 cameras. Now here are 10 examples of how Fusion will transform your GoPro videos. Number 1. Stabilization. Hero 6 made a huge improvement to stabilization, but Fusion takes stabilization to a whole new level. Two, selfies. GoPros are great for selfies. Fusion lets you take selfies without the selfie stick in the shot. 3. Vlogs. With the Fusion, you can shoot your vlogs just like a GoPro, while also capturing the B-roll at the same time. Number 4. Wheel shots. Whether it's a skateboard, bike, or a car, shots of your wheel look very cool. With the Fusion, you can add panning and show the view in any direction, all in one take.
And when you use stabilization on the Hero 6, you can't pan smoothly. On the Fusion, you can pan as smoothly as you want even when stabilization is on. 5. Gear shots. On the GoPro, you can get a video of your fishing rod, rifle, bow, or DSLR.
Now you can get a 360 view that shows the view both in front and behind your gear, and it can stay level no matter which direction you point. 6. POV shots. GoPro is the best tool for POV shots. Now with the Fusion, you can get a POV and selfie in the same shot hands-free. Show your viewers your reaction. You can also get a 360 POV with both front and back view using a shoulder mount or helmet mount. 7. Angel views. With a selfie stick, you can get an invisible flying camera view that looks like it's shot with an invisible drone that can follow you around. 8. Time shift. Fusion lets you do impossible shots such as time shift. You can freeze a moment in time, pan the camera, and resume the action. 9. Multi-axis slider shots. I'm sure you've seen those cool ads for Edelkrone sliders, the ones that cost thousands of dollars. Now you too can achieve this effect. Just put the Fusion on a dolly and frame the subject with overcapture, no matter which way they move. This technique also works great for sliders, drones, and cable cams. 10. Multiple subjects. Track multiple subjects at the same time. With a single video, you can make multiple versions focus on different subjects. These are just a few examples of why Fusion is the ultimate GoPro. And I haven't even talked about 360 photos or videos. There are other practical benefits for the Fusion. Unlike a regular GoPro, you'll never have to worry if your camera is leveled. You can level the photo or video without cropping. Also, you'll never have to aim with the Fusion. The Fusion captures everything, so you can just hold the selfie stick, forget the video, and enjoy the moment. These are just a few advantages of the Fusion. To see other advantages, check out my Insta360 Nano S review. Most of the advantages I talk about in that video also apply to the Fusion. Now, let's learn how to shoot with the Fusion. You control the Fusion just like a Hero 5 or Hero 6. There are only 2 buttons, a power or mode button and a shutter.
You can use the same voice commands,
GoPro, take a photo.
and you can use quick capture. You can also control the Fusion with the Smart Remote or the Remo voice-activated remote. There is no touchscreen because, as you'll see later, you don't really need one. But you can connect to your phone to get a live preview or change settings. When you're done shooting, it's time to share your photos or videos. For simple share, you can do it on your phone. You can share 360 photos to Facebook or trim and share 360 videos to Facebook or YouTube. You can also do simple non-360 overcapture style videos to control the perspective. For more detailed effects like the ones I showed in part 1, you'll need to edit on a desktop. Just download the files from both micro SD cards onto the same directory on your PC or Mac. Fusion Studio automatically matches the front and back view and shows you previews. Straighten them if you need to and choose between full stabilization or anti-shake. Then you can adjust the colors or change the title as well. Then hit render, which will export the video. Here's the tip: if you're not going to edit it in Premiere, just export it in 4K. It's almost the same quality and will be compatible with consumer video editors. After rendering, you can show it as a 360 photo or video, or use third-party software to convert the 360 into an overcapture video. For Adobe Premiere, use the GoPro VR reframe effect for overcapture. You can also use Insta360 Studio or popular video editors such as PowerDirector 16 Ultra or Magic's Movie Edit Pro Plus 2018 to create overcapture videos. Now here are 7 basic shooting techniques. Number 1. Don't put anything in the stitch line. Imagine the Fusion is a giant fan. If the fan's going to hit you or someone else, they're in the stitch line. 2. You don't have to point it like a camera. Instead, use it like a microphone. Hold it at any angle. 3. To make the selfie stick invisible, keep the Fusion in line with the selfie stick. 4. Move the Fusion slowly and predictably, or use a tripod. Some viewers will want to view your video on a headset. Number 5. The best height is usually around chin level, and for people, the best distance is around the speaking distance. Number 6. If possible, aim the stitch line at the sun or other main light source. 7. Use Fusion Studio to level the horizon. When vertical objects on all sides are vertical, then you'll know that the horizon is level. So yeah, Fusion is really amazing. I think it deserves all the hype that it's been getting, but it does have some disadvantages. For me, the biggest issue is that it's not rugged. So it doesn't have replaceable lenses and it doesn't have an external housing yet. Another issue is for people who haven't used a 360 camera before, you do have to spend the time to stitch photos and videos. And if you have an older PC or a Mac, this can take a while. And then there's the cost. At $699, it's one of the more expensive consumer 360 cameras. Now, if you ask me, I think it's a great value for that price, but not everyone has that budget for a camera, whether 360 or otherwise. We'll talk about the other options later, but for now, let's talk about the Fusion's advantages and disadvantages for photo, for video, and for usability. For photo, it's excellent. It's great. It has great dynamic range, and the sharpness is very consistent throughout most of the frame. It's also very detailed, like much more detailed than I expected for a camera of this resolution. So some issues for photo. First of all, for shadow areas, they can look a little bit flat if you're using higher ISOs. So I would use ProTune to limit the ISOs, if possible, to 400 or less. Fusion does have RAW mode, and the files are so much richer, but there are 3 issues. First, I found that the dynamic range is no greater than the JPEG. Second, the DNG converters I tried flip the image horizontally. Third, to stitch the RAW files, you'll need a third-party program such as PTGUI or Mystica. It also has some manual controls. You can use long exposures like 15 or 30 seconds. But if you want to control the exposure manually for shorter shutter speeds, you can't do that. So based on that, I rated the photo at 8.5.
This means it's significantly better than the average 360 camera of February 2018.
Now, so let's talk about videos. For videos, it's amazing. You know, it's got great detail. It's sharp almost everywhere. The stitching is pretty good, except at very close distances. And the best part is the dynamic range. It's really amazing.
To appreciate how good the Fusion is, let's compare it to the Insta360 Pro, an 8K professional 360 camera. On the left side, we have the GoPro Fusion. On the right side, the Insta360 Pro at 8K. When I looked at them side by side at a normal viewing size, I found that the detail was surprisingly similar. Even when I zoomed in and compared a magnified view, the detail was still pretty similar. Yes, the Insta360 Pro is more detailed, but not by as much as I initially thought. Now, let's compare the dynamic range. Based on the tone of the grass, the exposure seems to be about the same. Now let's look at the highlights. Surprisingly, the Fusion has better highlight detail. You can see the Insta360 Pro has a blown out highlight in the patio, but the Fusion was able to retain the highlight detail there. With shadows, the Insta360 Pro has noticeably better detail, whereas the Fusion's grass looks like mush. So I would say the dynamic range between them is similar, but that's remarkable considering that we're comparing a $700 camera to a $3,500 professional camera. This shows just how good the video quality of the Fusion is. You don't have to take my word for it. You can go to 360rumors.com, go to my comparison tool, and compare the Fusion with the Insta360 Pro side by side so you can see for yourself. So for video, I rated the Fusion a 9.0. It's far better than the average 360 camera of February 2018. Now let's talk about usability, its workflow and its features. On the plus side, the features I like best are quick capture, for example. I use that a lot. I also like the workflow. It's simple. I like that you can choose between full stabilization and anti-shake mode. And I like to mix up the two kinds of footage to make the video more interesting. I also like the smart remote accessory. I think it's really useful.
And it's also waterproof, but I noticed that the sharpness drops a lot when it's underwater, and plus the stitching isn't that great because it doesn't account for refraction.
On the downside, there's no self-timer. And in terms of the workflow, I think it's annoying that previews aren't saved. So every time you open Fusion Studio, the previews have to be re-rendered, which takes time. Speaking of Fusion Studio, you can't save your edits. So when you close the app, your edits are gone. The biggest issue for usability is that it doesn't have a hard case. This forces you to be really careful and sometimes to miss shots. So based on all that, I rated the usability at 7.9, which is very slightly below average. So the big question is it worth it? And GoPro took a really long time to make their own 360 camera, but I think they really did a good job. And out of all the 360 cameras that I have, if I had to choose only one for consumers, it would be the Fusion. And that's because it performs the best or close to the best in the widest variety of situations. So if you can afford $699, this is what I would recommend. Now, the two biggest issues for most people will probably be the cost and the fact that it doesn't have housing. So if either of those are an issue for you, then there are other 360 cameras to consider. So first, let's talk about photo. If your priority is photo, the one that I like best for consumers is still the Xiaomi Mi Sphere. And this is a camera that professional virtual tour photographers have been using, and they've been really happy with it, and for good reason. It's got great photo quality, better than the Fusion. Another close second for photo would be the Insta360 ONE. Although it's a little bit less sharp than the Xiaomi, its ace is the DNG. So it can shoot in Adobe DNG RAW and stitch it in DNG RAW. So that's what makes it a good camera for photo. For videos, there are a few options. I grouped them by level of detail, then I looked at dynamic range, stabilization, and other features as tiebreakers. So my first runner-up to the Fusion is the E360VR. It's got great optics and it's almost as detailed as the Fusion. It just has two issues. First, it doesn't have a housing. Second is the workflow. It has no Mac Stitcher and it's very slow to stitch on the PC. The next 5 cameras are actually pretty similar to each other, although the first 3 are slightly better than the other 2. Those 3 are the Insta361, Xiaomi Media Mi Sphere, and the Ricoh Theta V. Between them, the one I like best is the Insta361 because of its features. And by the end of March 2018, there will be an update that will be adding even more features and will upgrade the stabilization. I also like that it has an external housing. Next, I like the Xiaomi Media Mi Sphere. Some of you might be surprised that it's ahead of the Verve 360, but the 360 camera comparison tool doesn't lie. Check the result for yourself. Then I like the Ricoh Theta V. It actually has very slightly better image quality than the Xiaomi Media Mi Sphere and the Insta361, especially in low light, but its stabilization is not very good, and its storage is limited to 19 gigs or about 30 minutes. Finally, there's the Rilo and the Garmin Verve 360. These two have very similar image quality. I prefer the Rilo because of better image stabilization, actually the best among all 360 cameras. It also has better stitching, and I like that it has an external housing that works both underwater and outside the water. On the other hand, the Garmin Verve 360 has better high-frequency detail. It also has replaceable lenses, and it's waterproof even without a case. And it has G-Metrix overlays. Check out how the Fusion compares to other 360 cameras on 360reviews.com. Now let's wrap up. To summarize, we saw that Fusion isn't just for 360 photos and videos. I showed you 10 ways it will transform your GoPro videos. In part 2, we talked about how to use Fusion, including 7 basic techniques. In part 3, we talked about its advantages and disadvantages and how it compares to other 360 cameras. Fusion is truly revolutionary for action cameras. Just as smartphones completely changed the way we use phones, the Fusion allows completely new ways of using an action camera. Whether shooting by itself or as a complement to other cameras, the Fusion will revolutionize your videos and photos. Now it's your turn. What kinds of shots will you invent with the Fusion? Hey guys, it's Nick. I hope you enjoyed that video. It was a lot of work. And you saw the 360 camera comparison tool and how useful it is. And you know what? That's thanks to you. So thanks for your support. And it's not just the affiliate links, that helps a lot. But you can also help by hitting the like button, sharing the video with your friends, commenting, and the other thing is when you subscribe, hit the little alert button, that little bell, so you can get notified whenever I post new content, especially unlisted videos that only subscribers get to see. So I'll see you next time in 360.